So here we are in Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam, the setting for the second ever North Korea-US summit. Now, what are people saying? There's a great deal of pessimism among many of the cognoscenti, among the punditry, about what might actually be delivered from this summit. But there is also some optimism. So some questions for some of the key voices here at this summit. Could Doi Moi, the Vietnam reform process, provide any kind of a model for North Korea? Is North Korea likely really to start a denuclearization process? And is there going to be some good news coming out of the US Congress tomorrow at the same time that North Korea and the US are in their talks? Let's take a look. We're here with Chris Green of ICG, International Crisis Group, a career specialist. Chris, what are your hopes for the summit here in Hanoi?
Best case scenario would be an evolution of the Singapore joint statement from last June, which brings to bear some concrete deliverables on the very general principles outlined there in Singapore. So in Singapore, the two sides talked about a new relationship. They talked about changing the frame of their relations in Northeast Asia, but they didn't say how that was going to be done, right? They didn't talk about liaison offices. They didn't talk about any kind of specific exchanges that might bring that general principle to fruition. So we're looking for an evolution that's a bit more concrete than Singapore.
Those are your hopes. What are your realistic expectations?
Well, in the last few days, I've heard some negative sentiment about the likelihood of really realizing the biggest asks from the Singapore joint statement. So on denuclearization, I'm hearing that there's been limited progress because the two sides just have too much space in between them. But I'm hopeful on the liaison offices. I'm certainly hopeful on some cultural exchanges. And I do think we can see an evolution of the Singapore joint statement. So my hopes and my expectations, they're not hugely divergent.
Chris Green, thank you very much. We're here with Akira Kawasaki of the International Campaign for the Abolition of Nuclear Weapons. Akira, here in Hanoi, what do you think the North Koreans might realistically put on the table to start or arguably restart the process of denuclearization?
For the very first step, North Korea may sign the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, known as CTBT. According to the sources that I have in Korea, the officials of North Korea may be investigating what the implications would be if North Korea joins some multilateral international treaties on disarmament, and CTBT is one of that.
And I understand it would be very easy for them to join that, would it not?
Yes, because North Korea already declared that they will not do any further nuclear tests.
Akira Kawasaki, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
We're here with Christine An, a peace activist and founder of Women Cross the DMZ. She's here in Hanoi. Christine, thanks for joining us. What are your hopes or expectations from this summit?
Well, our hope is, what we've heard is that the president will announce and declare an end to the Korean War with Chairman Kim Jong-un, and we hope that that will happen. We also hope that they will commit to establishing liaison offices in both Pyongyang and Washington, D.C. We also hope that they continue this important process of repatriating the U.S. remains. We also hope, we sent a letter to Representative Bigun and also to the UN mission, Ambassador Reid, requesting that we get a meeting with the U.S. DPRK negotiating teams and that we discuss a process that includes women and civil society.
Good luck with that. Now, I understand you have some other rather high hopes for developments in the U.S. Congress Wednesday U.S. time.
That's correct. Some very progressive, forward-thinking members of Congress, which includes Ro Khanna from California, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, and also Andy Kim, who's the first Korean American Democrat. They have introduced a resolution calling on declaring the end of the war and also urging the president to begin the process to negotiate a peace agreement.
Christine An, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Andrew.
We're here with David Hutt, Southeast Asia correspondent for Asia Times. David, tell me, there's a lot of talk about the Vietnamese reform process, Doi Moi being a potential benchmark for North Korea, and Kim, of course, is now in town. Is that a realistic hope or expectation? Can Vietnam teach North Korea how to reform?
Most likely not. Vietnam's political situation is very different than North Korea's at the moment. Vietnam's Communist Party typifies itself with democratic centralism, which means the power is shared usually between the top 4 politicians. That's changed slightly last year, though power is shared. People are expected to step down after 2 terms, and there is an age limit. If you look at North Korea, it's a dynasty. Its political system and its ruling Communist Party works very differently, and if it was to try and attempt similar political reforms, it would most likely require Kim Jong-un to step down at some point in the coming years, which is very, very unlikely for North Korea. Economically too, Vietnam developed Doi Moi reforms in 1986. It was surrounded by Cambodia, China, Laos, which were also similarly poor as Vietnam at the same time. If you look at North Korea now, it's surrounded by China, South Korea and Japan, all in the top 15 of richest nations in the world. There'll be extra competition there. How the economy will actually reform is a different matter entirely. Is it going to go to low-cost manufacturing? So realistically, probably not.
David Hutt, thank you very much indeed.
Very well.